innovation management, and entrepreneurship, setting up a corporate innovation program that works. A course offered by Berufsförderungsinstitut in Wien and by Enterprise Garage. Now, before we start, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Mario Herger. I'm from Vienna. I studied technical chemistry in the Technical University in Vienna and international business management at the University of Economy in Vienna. And in 1998, I started at SAP in Walldorf in Germany at the headquarters in the business intelligence area. And 3 years later, I moved to SAP Labs in Palo Alto, Silicon Valley, right at the moment when the dot-com bubble burst. Very interesting times. I stayed another 12 years with SAP until 2013. And my tasks are always around new technologies and products that I was in, starting with business intelligence to composite application framework. And in the last years, I worked mainly in communities, but also technology strategy. I was looking together with my team at what are the trends, what are the things that disrupt SAP's technology stack. So I had a lot to do in innovation in big corporate that on entrepreneurship fostered and helped people to get the projects forward. But also, I took one of these projects and started my own company in 2013. I did the jump. I started out with gamification, but then also innovation, how to do entrepreneurship, how to be creative, and what is the Silicon Valley mindset. After 15 years living in Silicon Valley, I saw the differences in attitudes, in culture, in way people behaved between Silicon Valley and Germany, Austria, generally Europe, or outside the Silicon Valley. And that resulted in the end in a book that I published in 2015 at the Plassen Buchverlag, and this is called the Silicon Valley Mindset, what we can learn from the innovation champions and combine with our own strength. And this workshop here is kind of a result, a reflection on those things that I've seen and the questions that I get from delegations, from visitors, from corporates, from also a lot of startups. I mentor startups at the German Accelerator and at Bootstrap Labs. And that is the result that we have. And I hope I can give you a little bit of an insight in how innovation works, how you set up an innovation management program, what attitudes it needs, what kind of people are these entrepreneurs, what are the things to measure innovation, but also what are the elements that can kill innovation in your company so that you're aware of that. After all these parts of the innovation management class and the hands-on and the visits to companies, you will have a better understanding on what innovation management requires and is and how you can make it successful in your company. Imagine you invent the glue, you're working for a company that makes glue, and the glue is just not sticking. What do you make out of that? You would probably think, well, big failure, I just sunk a lot of money in a failed project. Well, sometimes that's true, but in some cases, this may be a positive thing, and it was a positive thing for 3M, because this is one of the inventors, Spencer Silver and Arthur Fry, who came up with the Postit Notes. Yeah, that's basically a sticky glue, a glue that's not really sticking much. Yeah, you can lift the paper off and on. And that is a thing that makes them a great entrepreneur. They are trying stuff, they're failing with stuff, but they're also thinking out of the box and realizing, singing at the parish that all these little notes in the Bible are falling off and out again. That maybe that failed glue that they had may be the right solution for that. And once they manufactured a small batch of that thing, a couple of dozens of those Post-it notes, and handed it to colleagues and friends, they realized they had something on their hands once those people came back for more. And so that's how they made business out of that. Now, here is something about innovation, and what you see here are all things that were replaced by different different technology. Actually, not technologies, but one technology in specific. You know, a filofax, a video game, a typewriter, a navigation system, a pocket calculator, a camera, a dictaphone, a clock, alarm clock, or telephone. You can already probably imagine what replaced that. It was the iPhone, the smartphone in the end. That's all of that. So when the iPhone came out, over 20, 30 industries basically folded on that thing. It replaced that. And the thing is, the iPhone added insult to injury. Because if you're a navigation system maker, TomTom or something like that, and then comes the iPhone and there is a map application already on that, and Apple, they don't even look at you as a competitor. You are nobody for them. Yeah, it's just another app that I have there. So not only do they kill your business, they also don't treat you as a competitor, and that's really hurting. So for you, that means whenever business you are in, you may be killed by somebody coming from outside. So if you just look at your competition, that you know, the one that you always follow, the other makers of the same thing, you're missing out on those that come from nowhere and kill you. So you need to be open to other industries, to other ideas, to other fields and disciplines in order to see shifts coming, ruptures coming that may have a reflection on you. One of the things is, for example, this payment system, Square, that was done by a glassblower who couldn't accept credit cards at this time, was not able to sell his glassware. So he came up with this idea of building that. And here's a glassblower disrupting the banking industry. So somebody coming from a very different business and from very different needs and going after you. Or those guys who created Airbnb, they were not in the hospitality industry. Those guys were just short of money for paying their rent. And so they came up with a very alternative idea. And because these were digital guys who build websites and mobile apps, that's what they built. And that's where they suddenly put unused rooms and apartments and houses on the market that you can rent. And that threatens and eats away businesses of hospitals. Hotels, not hospitals, hotels. Then these guys who build Uber, instead of waiting for taxis, and especially if you've ever traveled in the US in a taxi, you know, these are these old kind of cars. You feel like you're sitting in a cage, that they're more afraid of you than of anything else. And then they come and give you a much better service with better cars, with private people driving you around, and you have a much better experience here. So these ruptures are normally coming in what we call the adoption model. And the adoption model means this life cycle starts normally out with the innovators using that thing, coming up with that. Then come the so-called early adopters, these people who are taking the risk to use that, those people who are willing to pay for a product that may not even be yet ready. Then you have an early majority. These are basically the people then standing in line waiting for the new iPhone. Then you have the late majority. Once you have to replace your phone, you decide, okay, now everyone has it, I'll take that too. It seems to work now, so I take it. And the laggards are those people who have to buy that or have to take that because their old product that they loved so much is now being discontinued. So this has been this traditional adoption model that we've seen. But where the world is changing, and what we see now is a much smaller adoption circle. That's basically trial users, and then the vast majority is here from one moment to the next. And if you're not in this speed, working with the speed, reacting to the speed of introduction of new products, the world is not working with this old adoption model anymore. You have to react faster, become more alert, become more aware of that. Otherwise, you may not even realize that you're already out of business once this other competitor introduced the product, and you're just gone. You're just gone. So be aware of those changes that are coming. One interesting thing is, especially when we talk about disruption, is that 50 to 6 to 80% of companies that were the top companies in one generation or before the disruption happened, were the top 10 in this, are not there anymore after the disruption happened. So there are 50 to 80% new companies in there. So Clayton Christensen, who famous Harvard professor who wrote the book, this bestseller on the innovator's dilemma, when he started researching that, he realized that, for example, with the storage media industry. So when you look at floppy disks back then, 8-inch disks, 5.5, 5.25-inch disks, and then the 3.5, and then zip, and so on. And you look at all these generations of a new technology coming. Amongst the top 10 in each generation, there were 50 to 80% new entrants in there. Yeah? The same with the phone. Yeah? Who remembers Nokia? Who remembers RIM? Yeah? BlackBerry. They're still around, actually. And now we see something else unfolding here. Samsung apparently made a huge blunder and mistake with this Samsung Galaxy Note 7 that started burning, and they took it completely off the market and stopped production. They basically killed the line. So we don't know where Samsung is going to be. And that is something that we will see for other industries. At the moment, we may see that unfolding with the car industry. Half of the brands, half of the companies that you're familiar with today may not be here in the next 10, 15 years anymore. Yeah? Imagine that. Billion-dollar industry is just gone, wiped out. The innovation cycles are also accelerating, not just with the adoption rates that we see, but also how fast new ideas and business models are coming up. So, for example, when you look at the video rental industry, watching films and outside the movie and outside the movie theaters, you saw, for example, you remember those older amongst you may remember video rental stores. You went in there, you basically looked at the offering that they had, you took a VCR tape or you took a DVD, and after a few days you returned it after you watched it. And these were typically at the beginning dominated by so-called mom and pop stores, little stores that were there in your local neighborhood. And then came Blockbuster, and Blockbuster was a big chain of video rental, and they were the kings. They had 10,000 locations where they rented worldwide, where they rented videos. But then, and at their peak, maybe an interesting detail is, at their peak of their power, they made $500 million revenue just through late fees. That means people returning videotapes or DVDs late. Yeah, imagine that. That was a business model back then. And then came Netflix. And Netflix sent it out through mail. So you used the web. You went on the website and selected the films that they had and put them in the queue, and they're sending you the films on DVD. And that basically, after 20 years, killed Blockbuster. Blockbuster tried to get on there, but their focus was split. On the one side, they had all the hard assets invested, all the money invested in the stores, and then they built an online business as well. And while Netflix could focus only at the online business, at the mailing business, that means they could optimize everything that they had. Well, Blockbuster's attention was split. It never was good in either one of them, and in their balance sheet there were only the hard assets in there, not the soft assets, not this online business. In the end, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. Netflix, on the other hand, did not have those 20 years time. They had to switch pretty soon from mailing DVDs to offering videos online. And most of you, I for example, use it only online. And they didn't have much time there either, because suddenly you have Amazon Instant Video, you have Google TV, you have Apple TV, which also are offering movies there. So the innovation acceleration cycles are accelerating here. You see that coming in there, and that's probably for every industry. We don't have these times of 5, 20, or 20 years in order to wait. We have to disrupt ourselves right in the beginning. Now, disruptions are normally preceded by warning signs. There are often these series of little unrelated breakthroughs and discoveries that culminate in major disruptive innovation. But often we don't see that because these are single incidents and they're often not visible from each other, we don't see the combination of what is happening here. And these experts, there's people involved in these industries, they note the discoveries, they note these disruptions, these little breakthroughs, yeah. But they're often finding a logical explanation for why this is not going to have an impact. I give you an example. Yeah, here, automotive industry. Automotive industry today is dominated by internal combustion engines. Yeah, we have gasoline, we have diesel engines, and that's where this big expertise is. That's where the people had made their career for the past 100 years. They became better and better and better of improving engines, yeah, and perfecting the way you build a car in a mass scale, hundreds of thousands, millions of cars every year. That's where they're very good, and that's a good thing too. But now there are little disruptions happening. We have suddenly cars that don't have an engine anymore, that use batteries instead. Uh, and that's very different. Of course, batteries may not be yet that good. The range, the charging time it takes, the infrastructure that's missing. We don't have enough charging stations. So these are things that experts dismiss because the car, the engine, the internal combustion engine can do that today. Or self-driving. Yeah, we have very bad drivers. We have in the US 35,000 people that die every year through car accidents. 1.2 million get injured through accidents. And now comes a technology that's called self-driving or autonomous driving that is not so much focusing on how the car is built, but how the car drives and who drives it. And it's not the human driving it anymore, it's the machine driving it. So you need suddenly different types of things and like sensors, lidar systems, radars, laser camera systems, and algorithms, computer software, data that influences how the car drives and how the car is taught to drive. So that's a very different skill set from knowing about an engine, knowing about how to make a radio sound good in the car. It's about how the car can drive itself very good in a certain way that you feel comfortable, safe, and not feel sick in there. The other one is maybe tackling battery exchange, yeah, of how to get over a range anxiety. But there you also have the experts in the kind of saying, well, that cannot work, this is impractical, and all the things that are in there. And then of course, when you work in the car industry, you love cars. It is a self-selecting process. You work in the car industry because you love driving, right? And you want a car, you want a cool-looking car. But then come those ride-sharing services, peer-to-peer sharing, yeah, car sharing services where you hop on an Uber and 10 minutes later you step out and you paid $5 to get to your destination. And you don't care how cool the car looks like or what color it has. It's more important for you if it has a plug for your iPhone so that you can charge it. And these are things that an expert would dismiss because their focus is on a very certain area, and those are coming, and not just alone, they're coming at the same time all together, and suddenly they work as a nuclear explosion on the car industry and will change everything. An important concept to understand of how quick innovation is coming, we have to look at singularity. Singularity is this concept of accelerating things where machines are becoming more intelligent than humans. We will reach that singularity at a certain point in time, probably around 2050 is an estimate. But as we know, innovation is accelerating, so maybe it comes even faster than that. In certain areas, it has already happened. So what we see when we look, this is a logarithmic scale, when we look at development of life and how long it took, we see this straight line basically. And what we see also is that we increased intelligence in life in the last years. In the last 50 years, we made more progress in human life than since the existence of life. And now with computers shooting through the roof, we will see that again. So when we look at the singularity, you remember Moore's law. Moore's law, Gordon Moore, one of the founders of Intel, he came up with this law where he said that every 18 to 24 months, computer chips, computer processors are having twice as many transistors on it, and not twice as fast as the generation before. So we see a doubling every 18 to 24 months. When it started out, it started out at a point like 1, and then the next doubling is 2, the doubling of 2 is 4, doubling of 4 is 8, 16, 32. You can see the thing. It looks at the beginning that it's pretty slow going on. But now we are at the stage where we have 1 billion and 2 billion and 4 billion and 8 billion, 16 billion, 32 billion, and suddenly this just accelerates tremendously. And we are not prepared for those kind of things because humans think in a linear way. We think linear, but we cannot think this really exponential thinking. And that's why we are surprised, and many experts also make mistakes in estimating when a technology will be here or disrupt us. Here are some examples for adoption rates of how absorption rates are increasing and accelerating. The telephone in 1878, when it was launched, took 75 years to reach 100 million users. The cell phone was only 16 years. The internet took 7 years to reach 100 million users. And when you go down, you see we are decreasing the acceleration rates. Pokemon Go, as one of the recent successes, took only 2 weeks to reach 100 million users. Now, people in industries have a dilemma. They're facing this dilemma that they are looking differently at it. And I give you examples of these old traditional companies, how they look at stuff, and digital companies. Industrial companies look at owning assets, yeah, while we rent assets. Foxconn, in order to produce iPhones, Apple doesn't own a single factory. They hand it out to Foxconn. They rent basically factories. Industrial companies look at analog products. They build a machine, they build a car. But digital companies centrally look at the digital core of it. Tesla is ultimately a digital product. That's what it is. Uber is a digital company. This is not like a taxi company that has analog products. Uber, Airbnb is similar. The scale of supply, they look at what they have, so they bring in their partners to supply them. This is what an industrial company does. While digital companies use network effects, suddenly hundreds of thousands of people are offering their rooms on Airbnb. Yeah? And it spreads because more and more people are getting interested in that and can ramp up themselves on that and join the platform. Industrial companies use indirect distribution. It's normally a retailer that you sell stuff through. It's a dealership that you have, yeah, like cars are doing that, like bookstores doing that for you. But then you have direct distribution, like Tesla sells cars by itself. The dealerships, there are not dealerships in that traditional sense. These are Tesla employees. They are run by Tesla. Amazon sells directly, not through bookstores. 23andMe, the genetic company that gives you genetic testing, is selling directly and not through outlets. Regulatory capture. Industrial companies are often stuck in regulatory frameworks and red tape and all this kind of stuff, while digital companies often question those regulations because they bring a technology that makes regulations often outdated. They were introduced back then depending on the state of technology that they had. Like Uber, yeah? Why do we have all these taxi regulations? Because they are limited to the way taxis operated back then, but now Uber changes that through giving information to the driver and to the passenger and balancing out this equilibrium between them both. And there's no way of have an advantage over the other. Industrial companies also tend to build products for 3 to 5 years. It takes them 3 to 5 years to do that. and then get to a new version, while digital companies update frequently. Tesla every month puts out a software update. And not only a software update to improve and fix bugs, but suddenly also have completely new technology. The autopilot, this driver assistance system, was updated through software. You didn't have to get into the workshop to get it updated. No, it was overnight. Suddenly you had autopilot function and people were excited about that. Industrial companies also tend to have physical locations, stores, and so on, while companies such as Amazon or Enjoy, they do on demand. And that makes them much more agile. That makes them also less asset intensive. So they are not spending capital on maintaining those physical assets. Also, the tools that traditional companies are using, they're using things. They're looking at efficiency. They're using at small samples in order to make decisions. They use hierarchy for making decisions. It means they have these managers doing decisions and then telling everyone else what to do. They're designed for risk. Don't risk anything. We're too scared about that. They think about sunk cost. We spend so much money now in that we cannot take it from the market or not finish that. They have a management-centric leadership. They see IT as a cost center. So that's something that we have to have that, but it's expensive. And people make the labor, make the work. While digital companies think differently. They are about agile, responsive. They have, because of their data, because they're digital, they have tons of data available and can make decisions based on the data that they have laying there. And they can quickly test more and be really agile and change. They have decentralized decision making. Small teams that make the decision and go forward. Yeah, they just do. They don't ask for permission. They ask for forgiveness. They think differently. They bring in new ideas and test them out. They see, for example, IT as a revenue generator. We've seen that with Amazon Web Services. Instead of having this platform that runs the shops just for themselves as a cost center, they took this technology that they developed and offered that to other companies who need a stable, scalable platform. And suddenly Amazon makes more revenue, more benefit with Amazon Web Services than with the original retail business. So what is innovation? Innovation is an invention or discovery that I commercialize. And that does not mean I always have to make money with it. It just means commercialization is I bring it into the hands of people. An invention that is not getting into the hands of people is useless. Yeah, and you need to have a whole environment around it in order to get to innovation. Then there are two types of innovation, of course. There is what we call the incremental innovation. We do it a little bit better. We take basically corn and heat it up, warm it up in the water, and then we have soft corn. Or we transform it, by popping the kernel and making it popcorn.